Are you playing with a tennis racket that just doesn't feel right? Hi guys, my name is Alex Petrovich from Petrovich Tennis. I was a former top 32 NCAA doubles player, a touring pro for 2 years on the Futures Tour, and I've been a hitting partner for multiple ATP and WTA players for the last couple of years. I've switched rackets almost every 2 years for the last 10 years. So I've played with just about everything, and I feel your pain. But today I'm going to explain the 7 elements that you need to look for when picking your next racket. Here we go. Number 1, the head size. First, you've got your 95 square inch rackets. These are the smallest head size that are available today and are the most control oriented. You won't see many people using these, and they're even hard to find in stores. Then you've got your 98 to 100 square inch rackets. These are the most common with intermediate players and advanced players, and this is primarily what you're going to see people using on tour. These are a good mix of control and power rackets, which is why so many people use these. And lastly, you're going to have rackets about 102 square inches and over, and this is where you get into oversized territory. These rackets are going to be much easier to use, typically a bit lighter, and are more geared towards the beginner or the weaker type of players. So my advice for beginners is I would look towards the 102 plus, or if you're weaker, this is a great place for you to be. But for the more advanced or intermediate players, I think sticking in that 98 to 100 square inch range is perfect for you. Next up, grip sizes and grip shape. There's 4 main grip sizes that you'll see on the bottom of a racket, usually on the butt cap. Number 1, which is 4 1/8. Number 2, which is 4 1/4. Number 3, which is 4 3/8. And number 4, which is 4 1/2. Those are all going from smallest grip size to largest grip size. And here's what you need to know. The smaller the grip size, the more maneuverable a racket's gonna feel. It's gonna feel easier to whip around, but you are gonna feel less stable at impact because there might be a little more space between your hand and the grip. Versus if you're going for a thicker grip, it's gonna fill your hand significantly more, which will make it feel more solid at impact, but you are gonna notice that it feels sluggish or harder to use. And also, some companies make grips in different shapes. So Wilson and Yonex are known for making more rounded, let's say fuller grips, but Head and Technifiber have been known to make slightly more rectangular and wider grips. Each of these companies believe that this grip shape is the best grip shape for you, but that's really going to come down to personal preference. So my advice for most people, I would recommend making sure that you have 1 index finger worth of space between your fingertips and your palm. So when you grab the racket normally, there should be just enough room to squeeze an index finger in between. For the most part, that will apply to everyone, regardless of level. But for the more advanced players that are looking for very specific things in their racket, play around with it. Try the smaller grip, see if you can handle the maneuverability and the lack of stability, or maybe you want something more stable and you want a bigger grip than what you would expect. Number 3, string pattern. The most common string patterns that you're gonna see are 16 by 19 and 18 by 20. And what this really means, 16 is referring to the number of strings vertically, and 19 would refer to the number of strings horizontally. You'll also get some other ones that are 16 by 20 or 18 by 19. The reason that manufacturers play around with a string pattern is because they want to either increase or decrease the space between the strings, and that's going to have a huge impact on playability. If we have a less dense string pattern, so something like 16 by 19 or 16 by 20, typically we'll see that the spaces between the strings are much larger, and this is going to give you more power and more spin. The reason for that is the larger space between the strings allows them to move a lot more at impact versus something like an 18 by 20 that has a much denser string pattern. Those strings aren't going to move as much, so the control is going to be much more consistent, but you are going to lose out on power. And another thing to note about string pattern, the more open the string pattern is, the more that the ball is going to shoot up off the string bed, while the more dense and the smaller the space between the strings is, the more that it's going to go straight out of the string bed. So here's my advice. For beginners, and for most people, to be honest, I think a 16 by 19 or 16 by 20 string pattern is the way to go. It's easier to generate spin, it's easier to get power, and I think more people are looking for that than more control. But for the more advanced player, 18 by 20 or 18 by 19 is going to be the way to go. Advanced to professional players typically can generate enough spin and enough power on their own, so really what they're looking for when the ball speed increases is just the maximum control possible. Tennis is hard enough, so when the ball gets faster, you want to have as much control as possible in any situation. Next, static weight. Rackets can range from all sorts of different weights. You'll see some beginner rackets and rec rackets that are 260 to 285 grams, and then you'll see some of the heavier rackets, more professional grade rackets, which can start off at 315 grams or more. But I would categorize rackets into two groups. Anything under 300 grams is considered a lighter racket. Lighter rackets are going to be easier to swing, a little more forgiving, and they'll definitely work out better when the ball is traveling slower. The other group of rackets is 300 grams plus. Anything over 300 grams can become heavy. And so the heavier the racket, the more mass you have behind the ball, which will typically lead to more stability while you're hitting. This is incredibly beneficial as the ball speed increases and you need to be consistent at a higher level. So fun fact, pros like Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic have been known to use incredibly heavy rackets. Their rackets have been measured at well over 360 grams, which for normal people is way too much racket to handle. But conversely, more and more younger pros are switching to lighter rackets because of the increase in ball speed and the better technology that they've implemented in stabilizing the frames. They've been able to actually play with 300 gram rackets and slightly above and still manage to consistently hit the ball with tons of power and lots of control. So it's all going to be personal preference. But my advice to you, go with a lighter racket than you would think. In tennis, you can use lead tape to increase the weight of the racket if you feel like it's necessary. So as you can see here, on the sides of my racket, I've added tons of lead tape to change the balance and the static weight of the racket. At a higher speed, I just felt like it was necessary for my rackets to have that. The next thing I want to talk about is the balance of a racket. So that's going to be measured in how head light or head heavy the racket is. So you'll see if you hold the racket on the throat, see how my tip of the racket is significantly higher than the grip. This is far more common in heavier rackets because if the balance was way more in the head, it would feel incredibly sluggish and hard to lug around. And then the opposite is true for lighter rackets. The less static weight that a racket has, the more that they shift the balance into the head. This is going to help you feel like you have more mass behind the ball, and it acts as a balancing act so that more people can use lighter rackets and feel fine, and on the other side, more people can use heavier rackets and still feel fine. So in all honesty, I think for beginners, the balance of a racket is not something to consider. The more important factors are going to be head size, static weight, and grip size. Just focusing on those will make your life a lot easier. But for intermediate to advanced players, I would start considering the balance a little bit and also messing around with lead tape to adjust the balance as needed. Fine-tuning the balance of a racket is going to make it feel way more consistent and reliable in the hand when you're swinging, and this is going to be a personal preference. Some like it more head light, some like it more head heavy. Some rackets need more stability in the head, some rackets don't. Another factor we can consider is the color. I know, this might sound ridiculous, but some people really care about how the racket looks in their hand. It can even influence the confidence that a player has with their equipment. For example, Novak Djokovic endorses the head speed, and when it came out, it was a completely white racket, but you don't see him playing with a white racket on tour anymore. Because of his relationship with head, they allowed him to have his own version of the head speed, which is completely blacked out, and that's just a preference that he's had. Then you have Jannik Sinner, who also endorses the head speed, but he was less particular about this, and so he endorses the current version that also has the white paint on it as well as the black paint. You'll know right away if you're one of these people when you try a racket and you just don't like how it looks when you swing, or maybe it won't affect you, but try it out, see what you think. Now, the last point that I really want to drive is playability, specifically during points. When you're testing a racket, yes, it's good to rally with it and to warm up with it, but in a very controlled environment, you're not going to know exactly how the racket plays. You're not going to know if it's going to help you when you're on the stretch, and you're not going to know if you're hitting it off center or off balance, how forgiving it is. These are only things that you can figure out in points. So play lots of points. Play games, tiebreakers, or sets. Even play some matches with it if you really want to be sure. But ultimately, you need to try every single shot. The more that you can try a racket in all these different areas, the more you're going to see how it plays. For example, some rackets are more suited for one-handed backhands than others. That's why Roger Federer, with the pro staff, convinced so many players to switch to a pro staff because of how well it felt on the one-handed backhand. You almost never saw people with two-handed backhands using this racket, and there's a reason for that. It was particularly good for the one-hander and the slice. So all I can say is be patient, test it in every scenario, and play tons and tons of points with your racket. So to conclude, this is what I would say for beginners to focus on when picking their next racket. Focus on the head size, the static weight, and the grip size. Typically, you're not going to notice many of these differences when you're first starting out, but these three will have the biggest impact on how you play and how the racket feels in your hand. And then for advanced or intermediate players, we can start to incorporate all the other points that I talked about, because even the smallest changes will make a big difference to an advanced player. And you really want to know that when you step out on court, you have the most confidence possible hitting with that racket. And for both of you, take your time and don't stress. Picking a racket can sometimes be a long journey, and it's something to enjoy, it's something to have fun with, it's not something that should stress you out. So if you're looking to constantly improve your game, subscribe to the channel and keep up with the videos that I'm posting. Or you can go on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, and you can follow me for all my short Reels content for fast and easy tips that can improve your game. I hope this video helped you out. Comment below what racket you're using and what you're thinking of switching to. And hopefully, I'll see you on court very soon.